I'm Megan with 10,000 Swords, and I am back this week to talk to you guys about resilience. Last week, if you watched my video, then you learned a little bit about grit and how grit is completely vital if you're going to achieve the goals or change the habits that you want to take on in your life. Okay, so if you're looking to develop an exercise routine, if you're looking to drop anxiety, which is what I usually help people with, anxiety is a habit and you have to have grit, but you also have to have resilience. So today we're going to cover resilience, and I'm going to stop right now and just tell you that if you have not subscribed, if you've not given a little thumbs up, if you've not asked somebody else to come watch this video with you, do that. Do it, okay? So you don't miss anything. I am trying to be very intentional about being around every week for you to present you with some new really great strategies and exercises and information on breaking the anxiety habit and building your confidence. So this week is resilience. So before I do these videos, I always send out a weekly email on Tuesdays. You can subscribe to that at my website, which is 10,000 Swords, like pirateswords.com. And every week before I write this email, I start digging in and really researching the topic that I want to cover this week. And when I was looking at resilience as a topic, I came across an article on positive psychology, which I love this website. It gives me all kinds of great ways to really break this down and understand it and explain it in the way that I want to explain it. And really what I was looking for was not so much how to explain resilience, but to try and really nail down a good explanation of the difference between grit, which we talked about last week, and resilience, which we're covering this week. And there was a quote by Corey Miller, who she is a master's student at Ball State University, which is actually not too terribly far from where I live. So I'm gonna read you her quote, and I think it just explains it perfectly. So thank you for this quote, Corey Miller. Grit is the engine that moves us toward our goal. Resilience is the oil that keeps the engine moving. So when I think of grit and I think of what grit does for us, I always picture like a soldier army crawling through the dirt, and they're just like digging in and really trying to get where they're going. Whereas resilience might be like what they ate for breakfast or something like that, something that just fuels them, or like a purpose, or almost like your why, okay? But to build this resilience and to build this idea that you can bounce back and that you can create this bounce in your life where when things get bad, you bounce back and you get back on the horse, all right? When we're building that, there's a process and there's some skills that we need to have and some things that we need to really work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna present you with some ways to build your resilience that might stretch you outside of your comfort zone, so that if you tend to get down on yourself and not be able to get back focused on your goals, if you tend to feel like it's hopeless and just stop, if you're tired of giving up on yourself, this is for you. All right. So when it comes to the idea of building resilience, there's a concept called the 7 C's, and they help build a growth mindset. And this is great for adults and also great for teenagers. You can teach these to little bitty kids in elementary school. All right. So the 7 C's. So what I'm going to ask you to do after I tell you these 7 C's is to take some time and practice building some of these personality traits in yourself, and I'll give you some suggestion. All right, so I'm going to read you the 7 C's. The 7 C's are confidence, believing that you can do something; coping, as in developing coping skills when something falls apart. What are you going to do about it? Contribution, what can you give back to the world? Control, what can you control and what can you not control? Competence, know your stuff. Connection. It's hard right now with COVID, right? But there are ways we can still stay connected to other people. And character, who you are no matter what happens, all right? Those are the 7 C's of resilience. So let's talk about some activities that you can do to help build your resilience so that when you fall, you bounce back, all right? The first one, I just mentioned that it's difficult for us to have connection during COVID, but it's not impossible. We have to find creative ways to get social. So we could take a socially distanced walk with our friend. You're outside, you've got fresh air, you stay 6 feet apart and you chat. Okay? Is anybody sick of Zoom? Like, everybody's sick of Zoom, right? So instead of Zooming with everybody, pick one person that you miss talking to and FaceTime them. So for some reason, there's a different idea behind FaceTiming your friend than there is Zooming your friends, or Zoom just feels so work-oriented sometimes. But connect that way. Call them on the phone, an old-fashioned phone call, because texting is very impersonal and it's great for a quick answer. But if we want to connect, that phone call to someone that you've been thinking about, I always feel like if you're thinking about someone, if they pop into your head, there's probably a reason you're thinking about them. And usually when someone pops into my head, I hear from them within 48 hours, which, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you, it's very funny how often God jumps into your life and he's like, excuse me, but this is going to happen, so pay attention. It happened to me just the other day. I was thinking about a coach that I had, and she messaged me today on Facebook. I actually wrote a blog about my first grade teacher, and I didn't even know she was still living, but I wrote a blog about my first grade teacher. This was last year, and she literally messaged me on Facebook the next day before I ever even released the blog, which was crazy. It was like, whoa, wait a minute, I just wrote this, and now she's messaging me, which is really, really awesome because she was like my favorite teacher. So get social with somebody. Find a way to make connections. That grows your resilience. You have support. All right. The next one is control. Control your mouth. Control your attitude. Control your emotions. Yes, you can do it. No, it's not always easy. I'll be the first one to admit that I can cuss like a sailor, like on fire tongue, but I know how to control it too. At the school where I teach, I always tell the kids there's a time and a place. If you drop a 10-pound weight on your foot, let it fly. I get it. I broke my foot on the first day of quarantine this year. There were words, but if I were just out walking around, I can control my mouth. I can control my actions. I can control my attitude. And that's a huge one. If you are living in a Debbie Downer syndrome where everything is bad and woe is me, and you're like a human Eeyore, we got to snap out of that. Okay. That's one of the things I work on in my coaching a lot, is attitude, confidence, and perspective. Perspective is huge, and it is life-changing. I preach this to my kids every single day. You choose your attitude, you choose your behavior, and you choose your perspective. All right. So you are the master of your ship. Get out and own it. Take some control and take some ownership in that, because when you do well, there's a huge sense of pride that comes with knowing that, you know what, I could have let that fall apart and I didn't. All right. The next thing I want you to challenge yourself to do is to accept things that you can't change. And holy smokes, have we been tested on this? You can't magically make COVID disappear. You can't magically say, this person is, you can't control everything in your life, okay? Thank God for the lessons that we have learned in this past year. And one of the big ones is we've learned to let go and move on, no matter how painful it's been for a lot of people. We have lost loved ones. We have lost jobs. We have lost our sense of normalcy. We have lost so many things. And without sounding like Little Miss Sunshine, we've gained some things too. We've gained perspective. We've gained a sense of strength. I think we've gained community in a strange way. I've learned what matters and what doesn't. So when you can't change something, accept it, thank God for what you learned, and let it go. Because not always are you going to be able to achieve your goal. And that sounds very, very negative from somebody that literally coaches people on how to achieve their goals. But if your goal is to sprout wings and fly away, it can't help you with that. That's not a goal. Think about little boys and little girls that want to grow up to be fire trucks. You could be a fireman. No, I don't want to be a fireman. I want to be a fire truck. Okay, well, we're gonna have to shift that goal a little bit. So don't look at a goal that is not attainable as a closed door. Look at it as a closed door. Look at is look at it as a way to shift your goal. All right. So fight for what you want, fight for what you can change, let the other stuff go. All right. The next one is to be curious. And this is kind of a fun one. I feel like we've all gotten very creative in the last year on what we like to do and what we don't like to do. People have done more creative work in the last year, I think, than they've probably done for a lot of them in maybe a very, very long time. It might have started with adult coloring books, actually, but the things that we've done to keep ourselves occupied and our minds busy and letting ourselves be curious and explore new interests or new relationships or new books or new hobbies or new genres or new careers, because if you lost one and you had to come up with something else, maybe you had to make a shift, maybe you had to pivot. If that's not the word of 2020, moving into 2021, I don't know what is. Pivot and unprecedented times that I don't ever want to hear again. Anyways, one thing I want to recommend to you right now, and this kind of goes along with accepting the things you cannot change, is there is a book. It's by Marie Forleo. It's called Everything is Figureoutable. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And I read it last spring, and I have no idea where my copy is because I lent it out. It is fantastic to show you how to change those nooks and crannies and to be curious and creative on how to really get where you want to be. All right. And actually, Marie addresses the idea of growing wings out your back, so that's where my little example came from, and say, no, you can't grow wings out your back, but you could invent an airplane. All right. So these ideas on how we shift it and how it turns into this fantastic manifestation of what we wanted, even if it's not the exact same thing. So that book again is called Everything is Figureoutable. It's by Marie Forleo. Go get it right now. I will link to it in the comments below so that you guys can check that out. I don't get any money for recommending that book, by the way. That would be awesome if I did, but I don't. So I'm just putting it there because I think you should buy it because it's great. And I wish I had my copy back. I don't even know where it is. The next thing I want to tell you guys is to decide. And by decide, I mean decide. I don't mean be like, well, I think I might, or maybe I should. Decide means just, that's it. Stop. There's no more. I made a decision. This is it. Done. All right? Commit. Follow through and use that grit. All right? You've got it. We practiced it last week. Use it. Struggle. Because you learned so much through that struggle and messing up. All right? You're going to come out stronger on the other side when you do that. The next thing is, and if I've said this once, I've said it 10,000 times, be kind to yourself. Really. Stop saying bad things. I mentioned before about this coach I used to have, and she's coming up a lot. So obviously I have some connecting I need to do with her. I was saying in a coaching session with her something, and she kind of interrupted me and said, be nice to my friend. And I was like, oh, what? Wait. And then I realized that, like, oh, I was saying some really crappy stuff to myself. Do you ever pay attention to the things that you say to yourself? Things that you would never say to your sister or your daughter or your mother or your grandmother or your best friend. Like, damn, you suck. Your hair is ugly. God, you look terrible in these pants. Your fat is rolling over the sides. You are not good at, you are so clumsy. The things we say to ourselves are awful. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Talk yourself up until you believe it. And that is going to create resilience. You'd be like, I messed up this once, but not again. I'm going to do this again. All right. We see these billboards where it talks about Thomas Edison took 10,000 times to make the light bulb. I don't even know how he remembers what he did from one time to the next. I mean, he must have had some wicked good notes because that's a lot of times, but he did it. All right. That is some serious grit and resilience. I mean, even if you have to do it 5 times, that is nothing compared to 10,000. All right. So own it. You are amazing. Let it go. It is not a bad thing to admit that you're awesome. Okay? Do that. The next thing is understand that sometimes shit happens. It does. Sometimes your car's going to break down on the way to work. Sometime you might break your foot on the first day of quarantine. Sometimes you're going to spill coffee all down your white shirt on your way to a business meeting. Sometimes really bad things happen. Sometimes you get really, really sick. And sometimes someone you love passes away. And sometimes you lose your job. And those things suck, right? And we've been through it. We have been so through it. So while those moments can be really intense and really intimidating and really feel like it's the end, oh my God, this is so cliche, and I'm pretty sure I can't even remember the name of the song that it's in. Every end is a new beginning, right? So as much as we didn't want something to end, and as much as it might really, really stink that we're experiencing something, again, we're going to go back to this idea of grit, and we're going to go back to this idea of a lesson that you learned. Maybe you learned just how much you loved someone. Maybe you learned just how much you didn't really like your job to begin with. Maybe you learned just how much you used your right foot and how hard it is to exercise with a broken foot. So you have to learn how to do it in a boot. Maybe I did that. That was a bad idea too. You shouldn't probably do that. Maybe you, maybe you find a new path. But understand that when bad things happen, they're not happening to you, they're happening for you, and that there's a lesson to be learned. This entire past 12 to 15 months of our lives has been one giant example of things happening for us to learn from. We know what not to do and what we don't like, and it has been painful, and we are making it. If you are here right now, you are making it through. And that is more than some others can say, sadly and horribly, but you're making it. And you've learned things, and those lessons might be painful, and it might have caused you to feel anxious or depressed or alone or forgotten. And I assure you that you are not. All right? So sometimes you got to take that shitstorm, and you have to learn how to feel it, accept it, let it go, and learn something from it. Choose your perspective. It sucked. I learned this. All right? All right, next thing I'm gonna say, and you're gonna be like, gosh, she's such a weirdo about this. I'm all about rose-colored glasses. First of all, I think they're cute, and they look good with a lot of outfits. Pink lenses are cute, right? So they've gotten a bad rap though, right? Like, oh, they walk around with these rose-colored glasses, everything looks wonderful. So what? Wouldn't you rather have everything look good and feel happy and positive and that whole positive vibes only thing than walking around like, yeah, but it probably is gonna suck later? No, put on those glasses. You'll be stylish, you'll be feeling good. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Use those shades, okay? Optimism pulls you out of seeing the worst in every possible situation, and it refocuses you on the positivity that's right in front of you. If people blow you crap about being too happy and too positive and liking everyone, too bad for them. Too bad for them, because you're happy and you like everyone. Why do you have to not like people? Who says that's a good thing? We spend so much time worrying about everything else that if we just put on those rose-colored glasses, and even if we have to fake it for a while, it settles in, and that is an awesome, awesome thing. All right, and finally, self-care. So trendy, so necessary, so not, I hope it's not trendy. I hope it's one of those things where with self-care, you can just be like, you know what? Remember when people used to not do this and we laugh about it and wonder what the heck people were doing? I tend to think this is like ironing shirts, because like I'm all about not ironing anything. Like I'm not gonna buy something if I have to iron it. And when I do have to iron something, like if one of my boys or my husband has a shirt and they're like, hey mom, can you help me with this? And I show them, this is how you do this because you're an adult and you can do this yourself. I'm always like, why do you even own a shirt that you have to iron? They make wrinkle free. You don't need this, okay? But adopt some self-care and make this a permanent feature in your life. That was a weird tangent I just went on. Self-care is not selfish, all right? Taking care of yourself, finding easy life hacks is not selfish. It lowers your stress level. It lowers anxiety. It lowers, it's vital. It's vital. You need to have energy. You deserve to laugh and to relax and to have fun. You do not want to work yourself into an early grave. You're going to wonder why you missed the good stuff. So take advantage of it. You know what? If you want to lay in your bathtub and drink a glass of wine and eat chocolate tonight, do it. Do it. Fine. Even if it's only for 5 minutes, do it. Okay? There's nothing shameful in that. at all. Taking care of yourself, letting yourself drive around and listen to like gangster rap or death metal as loud as you can sometimes to relieve stress, that's self-care. And that is my favorite form of self-care. It just is. So what I want you to do is be compassionate and caring to yourself, because the world needs you. And there's only one of you, and God gave you these incredible gifts and these incredible abilities that if we don't using them, it's a huge disservice, not only to yourself and what it is that you want to accomplish, but with what the world needs and why you were put here. So I think it's very common for everybody to look for their purpose. And if you're not using your gifts and you're not being kind to yourself and you're not being resilient and bouncing back, you're missing it. All right. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that you will go out, try some of these techniques, connect with a long lost friend, take care of yourself, put on some rose-colored glasses, talk yourself up, do all of those things and learn lessons in life, because there's so much coming that is happening for you. And I'm so excited that you tuned in. Again, subscribe, share it with a friend, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, whatever, or jump on over to my Facebook page, 10,000 Swords Coaching. I'm on Instagram. And I'd really love to hear from you. So thanks again for checking in, and I will see you all again next week. See ya.